Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk Grief with your host, Lakecia. And this is the City of Hearts where we deep dive into real conversations, we explore raw emotions, and we have honest discussions. So brace yourselves because it gets real when we discuss the journeys of love, loss, coping, and resilience. How are you all out there in social media land tonight? So, tonight I am super excited because I have a beautiful, amazing, phenomenal Miss Terrye Hicks with me. And I am so excited for us to just sit down and have a real authentic conversation with her so that we can explore our journeys, but not only that, we can truly, truly, truly see a person with a heart as God. So I'm excited. So Terrye Hicks is a powerhouse preacher and a teacher of the gospel. She is also a motivational and empowerment speaker. Terrye is an entrepreneur and very creative. She's a founder and president of the Will Call Learning Center and a Christ-centered performing arts homeschool program for the K through 12. She's passionate about meeting students on their academic levels and helping them to achieve measures of success that she never thought were possible by tapping into the applying of their potential. In addition, Terry is also a certified mental health coach and a certified professional life coach and works to provide encouragement and practical tools for applications to students and creatives and visionaries. So without further ado, please let's welcome Terry to the stage. Hey
Hey,
Terry.
Lakeisha, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I am doing well, doing well, doing well. It's a good day.
That's amazing. So I didn't want to dive too deep into your bio because I wanted to save something for the meat and potatoes because I do have questions tailored for some of the things. We know that you are a lady of many, many, many hats. So, we didn't want to give the people everything up front.
So we gotta save some.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely. So, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. It's been a long week already.
Oh,
It's been a
yeah.
long week, but it's a good week. And so, I've just been living in this space of gratitude and gratefulness and thankfulness. So even in my long days and, long exhausting week, I'm still excited to be here. I'm excited about the things that God is doing. And I'm, just it's still a good day. So all is well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. So I wanted to give the people your words of who you are from Terry's perspective.
That'll be like, how long do we have? That'll be the whole show. But because we change over time, and I think um we're always becoming, if you try to do things right, so we're always
Mhm.
evolving, always becoming.
Yeah,
So like, if you asked me that question 10 years ago, whoever I was 10 years ago, I'm not her today. I've
absolutely.
evolved. So I think that's why it's important to ask questions like this and not just rely on a bio, because the bio just kind of gives the bullet points. So
Mhm.
I would say, first and foremost, I love God with my whole heart, and so I really try to live a life that pleases Him and that oozes out in the things that He's called me to do. So, like you mentioned, all the many gifts. I am an educator by trade, by nature. I love teaching, whether it's children or adults. I love sharing information and helping people to apply information in practical ways. That's just kind of how I do everything. I'm a leader, so I also love helping to coach and mentor other leaders and just helping develop leadership skills. I think you mentioned that I am a certified mental health coach, certified professional life coach. I am a minister. And I think probably one of the most important things that is probably going to be where I lean in tonight is I'm a creative. And so for people who may not really understand what that means, especially because that word is thrown around so much these days, but a creative is someone who has creative ability. So their gifts rely in a creative space, whether it's painting or singing or playing some sort of instrument or being a photographer. But what you do relies on you to create, and then you do that in a professional way where people pay you for it. So people pay you for your creative skills. That is what a creative is. I've been in that space my entire life as a performer, as an actress, director, producer, writer. And so I think my heart is to help other creatives and visionaries and leaders. That's kind of where my platform has been focused, helping creatives and leaders and visionaries to navigate things like grief and difficult times, challenging times, and still be able to operate in their creative space, meeting their God-given potential and doing what God has called them to do.
Absolutely. I love it. So for me, the creative space is something that I am definitely trying to tap into more now. Writing, of course, writing is a creative art, but that one comes very natural to me. So
Mhm.
I'm trying to come outside of the box and tap into more creative lanes that, I may or may not have experienced before. But it's definitely something that I am working towards achieving. So this is perfect. I'm excited.
And I love that. That's what I mean when I said we're always evolving. We're
Mhm,
always becoming. We can always decide to do something different, do something
mhm,
more than what we expected for ourselves. So I love
mhm.
that for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I want to start with a few questions that I have. This one here, it's just, can you share a little bit about your background and how you became a powerhouse preacher and teacher of the gospel? Yes.
That's a really big question. Um, well, let me say it this way. I've been in church my entire life. Grew up in church. I've loved God since I was a little girl, and I always have to say it this way: I grew up in church, but I also grew up in God, because some people grew up in church and still didn't really have a relationship with Him until later in life, and some never really
Mhm,
got to that space. It was just kind of a routine. We go to church because it's Sunday.
mhm,
But I was very, very blessed to have a grandmother who instilled in me the value and the importance of having a relationship with God at a very young age, and then parents who continued that on. And so I've loved God since I was a little girl. And um, early on, I think it was probably evident to people around me that, okay, she's supposed to do something or be something, because I just wouldn't stop talking. I was always in front of people, always. It's like, just would not quit. Would talk to strangers. I mean, I'm like 2, 3, and 4 years old, just randomly talking to strangers, probably embarrassing my parents. I don't know, but I've always done that. And so I started at an early age dancing and singing and playing the piano, just kind of being a performer, being on stage in front of people at starting at age 4. So because of
mhm,
that, I was always the one that, and you kind of see it like on TV and in movies, but it happened to me in real life, where my mother was always throwing me up in front of people. So at the family reunion, at the cookout, at the church function thing or whatever, it was always, oh, Terry, read the scripture. Terry, sing this song. Terry, do this. So I was always like being put on the spot to be put in front of people. So it just became natural to me to be mm, put it, put in the spotlight. I wasn't
mhm,
looking for it. It just seems to always find me. But fast forward, age 14 is when I preached my first sermon for our youth ministry at the church that I grew up in. And it was a very like not scheduled thing. I remember walking down the hallway, because I went to a private Christian school, and our school had a church. So I went to the school and the church. And I was walking down the hallway. One Friday, we would have our youth services on Friday nights. And so the Friday during the day, as I'm walking down the hallway, the youth pastor walked by me and says, "Hey, Terry, you're preaching tonight." And I'm like, what? What? So I had like no time to plan, no time to think. And I was 14 and I thought he was joking until we got there. And then I had to talk for real. But thankfully, because I had always felt this pull and this call to preach, I had been writing sermons since I was probably 10 or 11. So I had this whole
Oh,
notebook of sermons. So I picked up my little green notebook, flipped to the first one, and that is what I preached that night at our
well, they
youth
knew
service.
you were ready.
I was ready without knowing I was ready, or thinking I was ready, in front of 100 plus kids that were all judging me. But yeah, so that's where it started.
Okay.
And then fast forward my journey. Um, it's been a long one, even though I still consider myself young, but it's been a long one. But I think that's where it really started. So I always say, I preached my first sermon at 14, and then my church really helped to cultivate those gifts. And my pastor would, call on me to do different things in the church. So I was always ministering or preaching or praying or doing something in ministry for. Yeah, so from 14 and up, I was in ministry, doing things and leading in ministry. And so that's just kind of where it started. And over time, I learned to include my own personal experiences. So I wasn't just like teaching the Bible or preaching the Bible, or the scripture sounds good, I'm just going to preach this thing. But I started including my own personal experiences. And I think that's what people started to resonate with. I think that's when I really started to find my lane, because people could relate to me better when I started sharing my own stories, my own testimonies, my own experiences, because people could look and see someone who was a preacher, someone who was a minister, someone who was a leader. Because a lot of times we look up to people and then we think, oh, they must have it all together because they're up here. And we don't mean to, but we put them on pedestals. And so to see someone who is a preacher, is a leader, is a teacher, I see you up on the pulpit doing this, I see you behind the podium doing this, but oh, you struggle with depression, or oh, you had this experience, oh, you've had that. And me being able to share that is what resonated with people. And I think helped people to connect with me, because now they feel like I have someone I can identify with, someone who understands what I'm going through. So it literally influences and informs everything I do. So it informs how I pray, because I'm not just praying from what I think sounds good. I'm praying from my heart, because I know what I've experienced. So I can pray for you about this thing,
Yeah.
because I know what the prayer needs to say in order to, to help that thing change. And so just being able to tap into my own experiences and things like that, I think is what has helped me to get to that space of when I speak, when I preach, when I teach, it resonates with people, and it's life changing. It's impactful.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love that you spoke on having the relationship versus the religion, because I know for me personally, and this is a transparent moment, but I'm all about transparency. For me, I grew up in the church as well. Um, but we get so accustomed to tradition and religion,
Yeah,
but I'm so grateful that my grandmother instilled the foundation of having the relationship.
yeah,
So for me, I went and searched in all of the places. I studied other religions. I knew that God was real. I knew I had a real, but I wasn't sure on my path
yeah,
with God, if that makes sense.
yeah,
I was confused by the religion. Um, because some of the things just did not resonate with me. And a part of that was church hurt. So I took that path, but thank God for a praying grandmama
yeah,
that foundation was able to sustain everything. So I'm grateful, and I'm so glad that you spoke on the relationship, because the relationship is the most important part of your walk with God. You have to have that relationship. It's not about the tradition.
Right.
It's about the relationship. You have to get to know God for yourself.
For
And like
yourself.
you say, through experience, that's how you get to know God. So I'm grateful just to hear you speak on that. And also the fact that you spoke about, how we do seem to put pastors and ministers on pedestals, but they are human just as we are, you
Right.
know,
Right.
and we have to understand that we look at them and look for them to be perfect, but none of us are perfect.
None is perfect. I say that all the time, because you talk about transparent moments, and I will say that one thing that grinds my gears is when, because especially now in this cancel culture that we have, but we're so quick to cancel and let go of people that just 2 seconds ago we had them up on a pedestal because they do something we don't like, or they say something that, oh, you should have said that. But we're very quick to judge people who, like these gospel artists, or pastors, preachers, people that we see in the limelight all the time. And we're so quick to judge them simply because they're the pastor of so and so, or they're this gospel singer and we listen to their song. And we forget that they're human. We forget that the only difference between the dirt that they're doing and the dirt that we're doing is that nobody knows us. So nobody sees the dirt that we're doing, but we're all human. So it bothers me, and I know everybody has their own opinion on it, but this is just Terry's spiel since I'm on this platform tonight. This is my thing, that I think compassion is necessary all around, because I have a friend that likes to say no one's wool is white. Like we are
Mhm.
all in need of a savior. We're all in need of Jesus. And so I think compassion is what's necessary for us, because we will look at people on pedestals. Sometimes they put themselves there, sometimes we put them there. But either
Mhm.
way, they're there. And when they do something, it's a long fall down. But it's a long fall down because we make it so, instead of being compassionate and holding them up and saying, you know what? I know you did this thing that I probably don't agree with, but I also recognize you're human. And had I been in your situation, I might have made the same mistake, or I might have had that experience before and I learned from it. So let me help you through this. But we don't do that. We don't lean into praying for people. We go right to talking about folks and judging them and posting about them. And it's just so crazy to me, because just two weeks ago you were talking about going to their concert, and now you know what I mean. So it's like, compassion is necessary.
Ooh, Terry, we could this conversation right here alone could go so
Right,
deep.
right,
It's so
right. That's the reason you need to
oh
bring me back.
man, we will be on here all night, and not only that, the controversy that will come behind this conversation.
Listen,
So
if
we gonna
you want
move
to go
right along.
viral, that's fine. We're very careful not to say names. If you want to go viral, we just be name dropping, and then we'll look up and we'll be
Ooh,
on everybody's social media. Right.
on everybody. And look, my hair ain't done for that, so we ain't
Right.
going
Look, like
viral tonight.
we gotta do that a different time. But just understanding, and it's so funny. There's this song. So I'm a humongous Justin Bieber fan. Okay,
Hmm.
humongous, and he has the song with somebody else. I don't even remember the artist's name now, but the song is called Monster. If anybody wants to look it up, and I love it because in the song he they the lyrics say something now like, you put me on a pedestal, um and now I'm paraphrasing. So Justin, if you ever see this, I was not trying to mess up y'all song, but and I love the song so much, but I'm singing it. I can sing along with it, but now that I'm trying to think of the lyrics, it's beyond me. But anyway, the point is, he talks about um being put on a pedestal by other people because they love to put people up. And so, but then you put me so high, and now I can't breathe. So when I have trouble breathing and I start to fall because I'm so high up, then you have a problem with it. But you were the one who
Hmm.
put me up here, and now I'm suffocating. And when I try to come down for air, I get beat up for it. And so, and I think that we do that. I think that we put people so high up, but then they do something, and then we make the fall from the top to the bottom wider and bigger than it has to be. So yeah.
Absolutely. But I saw something the other day and it really warmed my heart. Because it showed unity. It showed compassion. It showed embracing others, even though their paths are different. It was Nicki Minaj and Tasha Cobbs. They have a collaboration out
Oh,
now.
wow. Okay.
It's called, I believe it's called Blessings. But who would have ever thought that they
Right.
would
Right.
collaborate? And so that was very profound for me. It was like, what? But I embraced it because unity is what we need. We're different. The
Right.
judgment at this point, judgment needs to be over. We don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in.
Right.
So just to see them come together and collaborate, I know of course you may have some on one side of the spectrum that's not going to like it, and then others on the other side is going to question it as well. But for me, it was phenomenal. It was out of the park collaboration for me to see that. So
Yeah.
yes.
I think, and again, this could turn into a controversial
Mhm.
conversation, especially coming from a preacher. But I think that sometimes that's what's needed, because you don't know what's going on behind those closed doors, what seeds might be planted, what words might be sown or given that
Mhm.
really can impact someone's life. We look at the finished product and we're like, oh my gosh, so these two shouldn't be together. And we start quoting scriptures
Absolutely.
and all these things about, two can't be unequally yoked, and how can two walk together unless we start quoting all the scriptures,
Mhm.
um, totally out of context, by the way. Um, but not even realizing that we don't know what goes on behind those closed doors. We don't know what happens in the studio sessions. We don't know what happens, in those phone conversations where
Yes.
someone feels like this person that I've connected to, they welcomed me into their space. They didn't judge me. So questions I may have had that I may have been too afraid to ask someone else, or go into a church to discuss with the pastor, I may feel comfortable enough asking this person. So you never know what it leads to. And even Jesus sat with the sinners. He had dinner with the sinners. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't always around the disciples. He was talked about because he was around the people that people thought he shouldn't have been around. So
Ooh, baby, when I say we could deep dive into that
yes,
conversation,
man.
so we gonna save it for a day when we both looking cute because you're looking gorgeous. I want to join you on that
Girl,
journey.
that's what you gotta bring me back on a day where I really look like me. Because today I told you it's been a
Yes,
long week. Okay, so this is the result of a long week.
absolutely. So, what inspired you to start Will Call Learning Center, and how does it integrate performing arts and traditional academics? Um, I'm excited to know that because I didn't even know about Will Call until I got to do my research.
Come on, research. Listen, and it's funny because I actually have an open enrollment for Will Call in 2 years. We're going into our eighth year. I still have students, so I have students that I kind of committed to before I closed enrollment. But
Mhm.
just looking at how I want to redo things and revamp, I stopped enrollment 2 years ago. So, but we're still powering through. But Will Call, it's always been a dream of mine, and I think you'll discover about me that I'm one of those that I am determined to carry out every last dream that God has given me before I leave this earth. Everything that He's put in my heart to do, I am determined to do it. That's why I'm like, Lord, I need to get 150 years to get it all done. But I am determined to leave this world empty. And so Will Call was a dream that I had. Literally growing up as first of all, I knew I always wanted to teach. It is kind of weird because I wanted to be kind of this teaching preacher who traveled around the world preaching the gospel, and owning a school and like dancing all over the world, and producing plays. And so it's kind of weird that I ended up doing what was it that was like my thing. I couldn't really describe. You ask a child what they want to be when they grow up. It was
Yes.
all those things all at once. Like, I want to do this. It's like, it's not one thing. Nope, I want to do all of it. So I try to do all of it. But I don't know if you remember the show Fame. That was way back in the day,
Yes.
in my age now. But I used to love Fame growing up. Okay,
Yes.
I always thought I want to have a school like that, but a Christian one. I want to be able to walk through the halls and see kids like playing on their guitar, and then you walk over in this hall and kids are like standing in the hallway dancing, and then these over here are singing and working on their harmonies for this certain thing. Just like I grew up in a school like that. So the school that I went to was very performing arts oriented. So at any given moment, you could be walking down the hall. I have a friend now who was my teacher at that time, but he's only like a few years older than me. So, but we're friends. And he always jokes that he calls me Debbie Allen because grown while he was teaching, I was in high school, and I was always missing class because I had a rehearsal to go to. I was always rehearsing for some dancing or some upcoming production or some whatever. So I'm like, okay, here's my assignment, but I gotta go to rehearsal. Here's my, and I'm always like walking around school like in my leotard and my little dance outfit or whatever. So I grew up in a school like that, and I'm always rushing to chorus rehearsal, and then we have this thing over here, and I gotta go. We got a play coming up, and I gotta go do that. And but still also very focused on the academics. And so I wanted to have a school like that where children who felt kind of out of place in other spaces could come to a place and it felt like home, because when they were you know what's the word, invited to be whoever they wanted to be. So when you have a principal and an owner, a president of the school who walks around with green hair, you feel free to walk around with your blue hair, okay? Because mine is
Yes.
green, or
Where
what?
were you when I was growing up? Because that was definitely needed. I love to dance. I always wanted to do extracurricular activities, but I didn't have that support system with that.
Mhm.
And so that those gifts wasn't nurtured. So I settled into, my writing, of course, because my writing was my outlet. Kids were seen and not heard back then. So let me say everything I want to say to y'all on this paper because I can't get in trouble with this paper.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Wow.
that was my outlet. But I was grateful for my high school years because um first I found myself in choir, did not enroll in choir, tried to get out of choir, and choir teacher was like, no. Well, that's when I discovered I could carry a tune.
On to
And in those 4 years were great. They were awesome because I actually had a choir teacher who nurtured. He not only taught us, the basics and the logistics of singing and the competitions and the rehearsals, you name it, but he nurtured us. He really nurtured us, and I was grateful for that moment in my life because I'm not a Beyonce, but I discovered a gift that I didn't know that I had. I could carry it too.
right.
Um, in the church, I was really shy growing up. I kind of anything under the radar I would do. Like you probably danced and was up front. I'm maybe the one in the back helping you put on your costume.
Mhm.
Doing something behind the scenes. That was more of me. Um, and I'm just starting to come out of that shell as an adult. I'm just starting to get comfortable in my own skin where public speaking doesn't bother me. I actually love it. I actually love it,
You're so
especially as
good at
a
it.
especially if it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I'm going
Right.
at it, but I'm just discovering these gifts about me, and so that's amazing how we still evolve and grow. But I believe if I would have had someone like Miss Terrye Hicks with the purple hair and the pink hair, who would have allowed me to be the individual that I really desired to be and help cultivate that. Oh, baby, I would have been phenomenal right about now.
Right. I remember our very first year that we opened up. Our very first year, I was still trying to really figure out what it was. I knew what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be the Christian version of Fame. But
Mhm,
still, of course, when you're just starting out with something, it takes a minute to mold it to what you want it to be. And I will
mhm,
never forget that one day we were sitting at lunch. We had like this lunchroom, And at the time, everybody had lunch at the same time. All the students had lunch at the same time. And one student was like beating on the table, like with his utensils, kind of making a beat. And so one
Mhm.
of the teachers stopped him, was like, no, 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 we don't do that at the lunch table. We don't do that. And I kept thinking about it, and I was like, why don't we do that? Like, why, like, who says we don't do that? And she was like, well, I guess because we don't sing and do whatever at the lunch table. And I was like, well, who says we can't? And so everybody's like
Mhm.
kind of looking at me like, what? So I was like, honey, if you want to, make your music, make your music. I was like, so drop the beat. So he starts dropping the beat, and so I start rapping. I'm not a rapper, okay? But I start rapping, but I am a writer, so I know how to make stuff rhyme. So
Mhm.
I'm rapping, and then other students join in, and next thing you know, like the whole room is like, you got kids that were up dancing, you got kids that were in their chairs dancing, you got some that were singing. We made a whole song just from this. You got others that are beating, some that are beatboxing with their mouths, because I had this thought that we don't have to follow any rule. We get to create the rules, and I guess I wanted a space for kids
Absolutely.
to be able to do that. I mean, some stuff you get, the stuff that's reasonable,
Of
that makes sense.
course.
But for the most part, who says you can't do these things? Like, we put those rules on ourselves. We put ourselves in these boxes. We create them, and
Mhm.
we've stayed in them all this time. And no one ever told us to get out of the box. No one ever told us that the box isn't necessary. So
Mhm.
then, I come along and I'm like, we don't even need the box. Throw the box away. Do whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? As long as we, and so that's why I ended up putting the two together, where students could learn the math, the science, the ELA, the writing, the reading, all the things that
Mhm.
they're supposed to learn, but they can do it in a fun way. So they might learn it with music. They might learn it with dancing. They might explore writing by writing a script, and then we turn that script
Mhm.
into a play, and we put on a whole production,
I
and but
absolutely
them being
love
able
it.
to kind of tap into that, and then vice versa, when we're doing the production. Okay, so now we get to use these math measurements we've been learning about, because we're going to have to build a set, and we're going to tap into our engineering, because we're going to do the audio and visual stuff ourselves, and we're going to make the costume. So let's figure out these measurements, you know what I mean? And being able
I
to
love
tap
it.
into both roles and putting them together. A lot of people think that it was separate, like we do the academics and we do performing arts. I'm like, no, we did it together. Because to me, it just made sense to do it that way. Now, it was not a fit for everybody, because everybody can't even function like that, but it was for who it's for. And so, and the students that have come to my program always loved it. So
I love it. I love it. We need more of you in the world because you're cultivating individuality.
yes,
And that is phenomenal theory because and I hate to keep using me as a reference, but I can't use nobody but me as a reference. um growing up back in my time, I don't want to tell my age to everybody, but we didn't have that. We had society's rules. We had conditioning. We had it was very few of us who had parents who were um what they considered weird or just out there because they did cultivate individuality for their children or they didn't live by the structure and the rules that society placed on us. They didn't put us in a cage. Whereas and this is not to discredit my family. I love my family and I wholeheartedly grew up with some great principles. um, but the structure, the rigorous structure, it really limited me because I was one who needed the cultivating of my individuality. And so now as an adult, I'm still cultivating my individuality because I'm unlearning the programming that was placed on me. You know, oh, I could just go deep into that, but we need more of you. We definitely need more of you because I really feel like that will take our next generation to a whole nother level to be able to be
absolutely.
comfortable in their skin and actually do the things that their heart desires, versus just going to work a job because we got to pay bills,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I will
man.
say that I am grateful. I just want to make this right, because I am grateful, because you mentioned, your family. I'm grateful for
Mhm.
parents that push every little thing I thought I wanted to do. Even now, every little thing I still think I want to do, they still support it. And my father has always said, you know, you don't even march to the beat of your own drum, and you like have some whole other instrument that no one even knows what the instrument is, and that's what you march to. Like, yeah, this whole, you know, but they allowed me now. They might also think that you don't went too far with this individuality thing with the, you know, your colored hair and your, you know, your flashy frames and all, you know. But I think it's important that we, as long as you're not harming anyone, you know, I think
Absolutely.
it's important for us to really allow people to be who they feel they are, to embrace that individuality. We change over time, so you know, 10 years from now, well, maybe not the hair because I've always loved my little colored hair, but you know, whatever. 10 years from now, I might be on to something different because my style changes or who, you know, my personality, whatever.
Mhm.
But I think it's important that we allow people to explore who they are. And when I say people, I mean like, you know, children and
Mhm.
growing into adults to explore who they are, to then embrace who they are, because that's how we embrace other people. And I think a lot
Absolutely.
of times we have issues with other people because we have issues with us. Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe she's walking around wearing that, because you wouldn't wear it because you don't have
Mhm.
the confidence that she has to wear what she's wearing. You know what
There
I'm.
you go.
So I think that if we took more time embracing us and our own individuality and exploring it, figuring out what that is, the world might be a little bit more kind than it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with you on that. Keep marching to the beat of whatever drum it is out there because I love it. And I'm doing the same now. I'm finally marching to the beat of my own drum and it feels great.
Yeah.
It feels amazing to just take the this is the unmasking season, just to be able to be authentically me and not worry about like even today, my mom, I'm used to having the color hair. Now that was something I always did with the color hair. And it was funny because my hair is black now, but my mom was like, when are you gonna put your color back in your hair? Because I'm not used to this.
Wow.
But I remember back in the day, she'd be like, you have every color in the book because I might be pink one day, might be purple one day,
Come on
but
in. Yes.
so now she's embracing me. And it was funny to me because I was like, well, when I feel like it, but it was just funny to hear her say that because I remember a time where she was like, why are you always dyeing your hair? So it was just funny to see that with me embracing me, then people are finally, which they can catch on or not, I don't care. But, just to finally see that they're like, okay, she's gonna be her, let her be her. So that was very funny to me today. But you wear many hats throughout your career. We've discussed preaching, teaching, entrepreneur, being an artist. How has these roles influenced your perspective on love and loss?
Now this might be where the conversation changes and we get into the real transparent part, because that's a real heavy question.
Mhm.
Um, but I think I'll answer it like this. Truthfully, it's what influences um, uh, much of what I do. Like I said, you know, I preach from that place. I speak from that place as a motivational speaker, as an empowerment speaker. I speak from my own experiences. I don't just get up and tell people, you know, the sun is going to shine tomorrow and you're going to be amazing. I talk about the highs and the lows, because you don't know what high is unless you know what the low is. You know what I mean? How do you know what high is
Absolutely.
unless you've experienced the low? So I talk about both. But when it comes to me as a creative, I'm a songwriter, I'm a playwright, I'm an author, and all of the things that I write and I do, they come from that place of love, of
Mhm.
loss, of grief, of pain. I hate to say it, but I mean that's where my material comes from.
Yeah.
So um
Grief would definitely birth some things out of you.
It really will. Love and loss and hurt and pain and heartbreak and grief and
Mhm.
struggle and the journey to healing, all of those things have influenced and informed how I write. And people, you know, may see a play that I write, they may see the production, they think, oh man, this is an amazing production. But they don't know that I pulled those things from real life experiences. Or, the book that I wrote, it came from real life experiences. So
Mm.
it helps people now because people are now discovering how they can experience the resurrection of a vision after it died. But I had to have some visions die in order to write the book. I didn't just write it based on the perspective of, a Bible story. That's a part of it. But I included my own journey in that because people need to know real life happens. And so
Absolutely.
it truly, it's like just about every poem I've written, every play, every song, even the songs that I write that are like worship songs, they come from my heart and they come from those spaces where I'm crying out to God or I'm pouring my heart out to him, and then those songs may come out of that moment. But yeah, just about everything I have done, I really reach into real life, and then it turns into something great. And that's the thing about being a creative that people don't really understand. They love to see the product. So they love to hear that
Mhm.
song that somebody sings, not knowing the hurt or the heartache somebody had to go through to write that
Yeah,
song. So you're hearing it and you like the beat and you like the music and all of that, but not knowing that that person almost lost their life over this song that you love so much now, or this movie that you're looking at. You don't know what somebody's mind had to go through to come up with those characters, to come up with that plot, to come up with just all of it. And so it's an interesting place. I
mhm.
don't think that I would change it, but Lord knows if I could get to the one part without the other part, I probably would prefer it. But that's just kind of how it has, that's where it comes from. So to answer your question, um, love and loss and grief and all of those things are a humongous part of me being a creative. It's I go through the challenges, and then when I come out of them, and sometimes while I'm in them, I'm writing about it, or I'm
Mhm.
creating something from it. I'm creating something is going to come from it. So it's got to the point now where when I go through something, I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to create from this? Like, is it going to be a movie? Is it going to be a play? Is it going to be like, I just know it's going to be something because I've gone through enough things that have then turned into something that's helpful for somebody else. So I've kind of
Absolutely.
embraced it at this point, but
Because I didn't become an author until um 2021 is when it was published, but I started at the end of no, I started in 2021, correction. Um and I've published 4 books and I am working on number 5 right now. Actually was writing on it today, and this when I tell you it's like I just gotta get it out. And now that I found an avenue um of publishing it and getting it out. And it's amazing how, yes, I'm telling my story, but in the midst of it, I'm having aha moments that I know will help others. So not only are they interesting, because people love your mess, people love your experiences, people love it's juicy, you know.
right,
And I've
right.
lived some juicy moments, but to be able to have the transparency and the aha moments in the midst of it is just amazing. Like I can't even put words to articulate, how it is. And just finishing Love Language of Grief, the book we just released. When I tell you it was so phenomenal when I sat and read the finished product, because I knew my vulnerability and how I was writing, but to see the other different writing styles of the different authors in their vulnerability and actually the authenticity of their stories, and some of the stories I'm like, I don't even know if I could have survived it. Um I read the finished product in one day. That's how good it was. I just did not
Wow.
want to put it down. But we didn't reach bestseller, which is okay because it was never done for a seal. It was
Right.
done for the impact and the feedback that we have been getting from this book has been phenomenal. And I'm like, God, you did your big one with this because this was all him. He birthed this one at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
He wouldn't let me rest. He gave me the title a couple of years ago, but I kind of pushed it aside, like, oh, that's cute, but yeah. Um, but when it was time, I could not rest at 3:30 every morning. I was up and
Wow.
I was like, okay, God, you got it. You got it. And to see it come full circle, I I'm just grateful. I'm just in awe. So I completely understand how grief can pull some things in us that we never even knew was there. But at this point now in the game for you, like you said, you like, okay, what's coming out of this?
Right.
You've learned
Right.
how to channel that into something constructive because look, this too heavy for me to just hold it in and keep it inside. Come on, let me release this, but let me also help someone in the midst of it.
Absolutely. And that's,
Man,
I think, the important thing because we never go through things just for us. It's always to help somebody else. And so
yeah.
I think if we go through things with that mentality that, okay, I'm going through this, and it might be because I need to learn a lesson in it, but when I get out of this, I need to be able to turn around and help someone else. I just went through a very challenging season. If anybody's
Mhm.
familiar with the story of Job, just call me Job bad child because that's what I just went through.
Girl.
Jobina, that's me. And but I went through a very very challenging season, and I did it with not a whole lot of people knowing. So I did like it was a private season. I mean, a few people knew what was going on and whatever, and it was like back to back to back because it was just mind blowing. But I realized that I couldn't even stay in that place long and I had to go through my grieving processes and all of that. But I couldn't even, the Lord wouldn't even allow me to like stay there long. I had to like heal quickly because I needed to turn around and help other people. And so I've been kind of like posting about it here and there and little secret I'm working on next book now.
Mhm.
But I had to be able to turn around and help other people. So now I can tell people, look, if you're in a dark season that you feel like I just do not know if I'm going to make it out, not how, but if I don't even know if I'm going to make it to the end of this thing, I want you to look at me as proof that there is another side to your dark season because I came out of mine. But if I don't open my mouth to say that to someone, you might not, and you might look at me and think I have it all together. That's why I let people know that I do not. But if you look at me and you only think I have it all together, and I never open my mouth to tell you that, hey, I was in a dark season, but God brought me out, you may not know that there's an out for you. You may think you're stuck in this thing forever because no one ever told you that you could come out of it. And then no one ever showed you proof that you could come out. So I have to be the proof. You have to be the proof. We have to be the proof when we go through things. It's not just for us. Oh, God, thank you. I made it through that. And we're going about our lives. No, now I got to turn around and tell somebody else. It may not be in writing a book. It may not be even posting it on social media. But however God puts it in your heart to help somebody else, it may just be a one-on-one conversation with somebody. But I think we're obligated to, once I go through this thing, I need to turn around and help the next person so they can turn around and help the next person. Otherwise, there's going to be a backup in the tunnel because everybody's stuck in the tunnel and nobody knows how to get out of it.
Mm, I'm trying to tell you. Woo, girl. Terry, I am a walking testimony of that. Grief, man, for 4 years consistently. It's just been back to back to back to back, immediate family. Um, and in the midst of that, I had already started my life coach certification, actually. I didn't have a niche. Um, but I always knew I wanted to be a life coach. I love helping people. I just do that naturally. Like that's just me. That's my satisfaction to be able to help someone. I can go to bed happy because I've helped someone.
Yeah.
Um, and it took a couple of women that I deal with to say, you should be a grief coach. This is in the midst of my grief. So I'm getting angry because I'm like, no.
Right.
Like, don't even say that word around me because at this point I'm trying to get over my own grief. Like, no. Um, but the way God used me in the midst of my own grief to show up for others, to help others through their grief, in the midst of my own grief, man. And I still sit back and I'm still going through it. I just buried my grandfather in February. I took care of him for 8 years. And it took for my therapist to tell me, I was like, you know, I know my grandfather was elderly. I know he had health conditions, but it's really hitting me hard. And she said, because you're not just grieving your grandfather, you're grieving him as your child. You was his caregiver. You were his nurturer. You changed his diapers. You fed him. You comforted him when he, needed comfort. And that was your baby. And it made sense to me. So I'm still in my grief and I'm very transparent because I don't have it all together, but that's the purpose. That's what I want people to see within my coaching program. I don't have it together. I'm not completely healed, but this is what this walk and this journey looks like. I never give up. I never stop. I may have a bad day, but tomorrow will be better. I may have a bad moment. I'll tell anyone. It with grief, you can't say take it day by day. You have to take it moment by moment
Moment, right.
because I can be at a place of acceptance and then turn the corner and smell a smell or hear a song and then I'm back at square one. That's a moment for moment journey. So it's important for me to let people see me in both aspects, in all aspects, just complete transparency with my grief because if they feel like I got it all together, they could never relate. But with them seeing me in my high and my low moments, they can relate. You know, to it because I mean grief is different for us all, but it's a universal language. It's
Yeah.
it's a universal language. So
Yeah. We all, even if we speak it differently, we all have experienced it. So that's good.
yes,
And if you
absolutely.
haven't, for whatever reason, completely by osmosis, apparently you will. Like you just don't
Mhm.
go through life without it. It's just one of those things that's inevitable.
Yes, and it doesn't have a age range on it. We have more children now. I was reading statistics the other day, and they were saying like 7.8 or 7.9 million children are without a parent.
Mhm.
And it was just astounding to because you never really think about it to that magnitude. I don't know if it's like that for you or me, but sometimes I get so confined in this little box that I can't think outside my city. I think, and it's 100 other countries.
Right.
But when you sit and you read and see the statistics and then you realize, okay, it's like 10 billion people on this planet.
Right.
And to see 7.8 million children that are without at least one parent due to death, like that
Wow.
hurts.
Yeah.
And it really hit home for me because I have two nieces. My brother left two daughters behind. One is here with me now. She's with me every summer. The other is normally here every summer, but she's getting on up in age now, so she got other things to do, you know. But just to and my niece, she told me the other day, she was like, TT, I just want to hear my daddy's voice. Luckily I have videos and I have pictures, where I can go back and play those with her and give her the memories and talk to her about it, but it also breaks my heart because this is the only interaction she will get with her father now. She was only 4 when he passed away. She's 8 now, you know?
Wow.
So, yeah, that we can be talking about grief all day long. But I'm just so grateful to have you here and for you to be able to speak on a different perspective, um, and be, as transparent as you are about it. Um, you have an upcoming book that we just talked about. Um, are you ready to reveal the title of it?
I can. Yeah, I can, because I mean, it's not a secret. I have
Because it
really
sounds very poignant, and I just want to know what was the inspiration behind this book, and I love the title. So I'm gonna let you say the title.
Okay, wait. So I think what you're talking about, that book is already out. If we're talking about the same book, um, there has to be a book you're talking about, because I haven't shared the title really with this next book with anybody else. But so the book you're talking about is actually already out. I'm just delayed in my book signing is what that
Okay.
but yeah, that book came out in 2022, I think. Yeah,
So what's the name
2022.
of this one?
Huh?
What's the name of this one?
This one is When the Vision Dies. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's another one I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. All right, then we understand. Okay, we understand one. Okay, so yeah, so we can reveal that. You'll be the first. Listen, it'll be it'll be revealed on your show, so you get the
Okay.
first part.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, we can reveal the title. What you wanted me to do it? Were you wanting to?
Hmm.
So it's called Hope in the Heartbreak.
Yeah.
Um, and it's funny. I actually living life. But I came up with that title in a conversation with a friend. I was going through I was going through the loss of a relationship. And I mean, I was really grieving. I was having a really tough time, because you think things at the beginning of things, you think about, for at least I was thinking about forever, and thinking about the way I thought it would go,
Hmm.
um, and the way I thought it was supposed to go. And when it didn't go that way, I've had relationships before that, it didn't work out, and I'm kind of like, well, hallelujah, and it just didn't phase me. And something that kind of hit you a little bit, but you get over it, you move on with your life. But this one, it, Lakecia, it almost took the life out of me, to be honest. It really broke my soul. I know Beyonce said, you won't break my soul. But this one, it did. I mean, the Lord had to rebuild me. So it wasn't even like it almost broke me. It broke me down.
Hmm.
And I had to go through a rebuilding process. But I love it, because when God restores, he's the original manufacturer, so he knows exactly what I'm supposed to be built like. So
Yeah.
it's not, you know what I mean, it's the true restoration of what I'm supposed to be, and then he does it better because he's God. So in this conversation with the friend, I was still believing for the relationship to work out. And so I'm speaking this faith, and this is a word for somebody, because I am speaking and just believing and praying for the success and reconciliation of this relationship. And so in that, I said, I'm learning to have hope in the heartbreak, because my heart was breaking, because I was experiencing the decline of the relationship, and
Hmm.
I knew that it was ending, but I still had hope that the Lord would breathe some life back into it. So I had hope in the heartbreak. My heart was breaking because I saw that it was ending, but I had hope in that. Well, the relationship didn't work out. And what I had to learn was that I had hope in holding on to what I thought was God's plan for my life in that relationship. But then I had to learn that sometimes the hope is in letting go. We
Yes.
like to hold on to stuff, And sometimes the hope isn't holding on. You got to hold on. You got to keep pressing. You got to keep fighting. And that's what I was doing in this relationship. I was holding on to what I thought was God's promise. And then I realized I have to let this thing go. But the hope was in that, because I had to put my hope not in the person, not in the relationship, but in God. Because God, I know what you said for my life. And so either I believe that or I don't. Whether it's this person or it's not, I still believe what you said. So I'm still going to have hope in the heartbreak, during the heartbreak, after the heartbreak, because my hope is in you. It's not in a person. So it started out one way. The conversation came about because I was saying, I still have hope that this thing is going to work out. I still believe that God is going to fix it. I still believe that God is going to do it. And then he didn't. And so that's the word for somebody, because sometimes it doesn't work out the way you thought. And you have to ask yourself, am I still going to trust God, or am I not? Was I only trusting him because I thought he was going to do it the way I wanted him to do it? Or was I trusting him because he's God? Because if I trust him because he's God, whatever he does is going to be what's best for my life, because Romans 8:28 says that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. So if I believe that, then whatever happens is going to work for my good, whether it's this person or it's something else, whether it's this job or it's not, whether it's this, this business that I was going to do, or the business doesn't work, or, whatever it is. And so that's how it came about. But it came about in, like I was talking about, my own experience. And this is going to be real transparent, because I want to talk through the journey in this book of what that's like when you're believing God for something and that doesn't work out. And we have that all the time. So many people, they're praying for God to heal this person of cancer, or to heal this person that's in the hospital, and then the person dies. What do you do with that? You know what I mean? God, I was praying for you to do this. And sometimes we get angry with God, or we get frustrated with God. We walk away because I was expecting a different outcome and you disappointed me. And so we have to learn how to have hope in those moments. How do you have hope when you're in the middle of the heartbreak? How do you have hope in the middle of the death, in the middle of the grief? How do you have hope in those hard moments? I think that needs to be talked about, because we all have hard moments, and we kind of leave the hope behind because we focus on the hard moments. But it's important to have hope in those moments. I think that's what helps us get out of those moments. So
I'm
that's
actually touching on that in my new book that I'm working on, and I have not revealed a title or anything about it, because when I say I'm still working on it. I just finished one, but this one here, I couldn't wait to start on, because this is a personal story. I'll be the solo writer on it, but I actually touch on that because I actually experienced a moment where I'm praying for God to heal someone, and in the same instance, I'm ready to kill this person, you know. um,
ooh,
and I going through a breakup with a person, um, couldn't even really call it a breakup because this person wasn't able to respond. So I was breaking up with the relationship, but at the same time, I can't get closure because this person was not the same person anymore. This person was on life support. Like, ooh,
yes.
when I say broke my soul, Terry.
We write that together, girl.
And here it is 4 years later, and I'm just able to tell my story in its entirety, and release it. And I feel like now, after 4 years, I'm finally able to accept dating if it comes to me, I'm finally in that healing season where I won't take that baggage into my
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
relationship. But it's been a long 4 years. Um, but there's hope.
There is hope. And you said something really important, because you talked about closure. And I have learned in my experiences with dating and just with people, because sometimes people just don't do right. You want people
Mhm.
to do right, and they just won't. So I've had to learn over time how to have my own closure. right?
Mm.
Because you don't always get it from a person. Sometimes they don't even know that something needs to be closed. Okay, like people just don't do what you expect, and so I have learned that when we wait on other people for closure, that kind of helps the disappointment and the frustration to linger, because you're waiting for somebody to do something that, one, they may not know needs to be done, two, they may not believe they need to do it, three, they really don't care to do it or not, because they
Mhm.
aren't concerned about you the way you think they are. And so they've moved on with their lives, and so we're holding on to a moment of closure that we can't get, or like in your case, it wasn't even possible. So I've learned that we have to be able to have our own closure. And thankfully, the Lord has helped me to kind of walk through that, because in this
Mhm.
situation, I had to have my own closure
Mhm.
and not go looking for it from a person, because I can't force you to do anything that you don't think is necessary to do, because it's not even about you, it's about me. I'm the one that needs to move on with my life and to still be who God has called me to be, and I have to be able to do that without you and without having to explain that to you. And so I think you said something really important, that closure is necessary, but I've learned that we can navigate our own closure with the help of the Holy Spirit, of course, with the help of the Lord.
Yeah.
I can't do a thing without him. So that goes without saying, but still I think it needs to be said that with the help of the Lord, I still think that closure is possible, because it's really about you accepting what happened and acknowledging where things stand, acknowledging how you feel about it,
Mhm.
and then being able to move on from it. So that doesn't require anybody else but you, because you don't
And
even.
you're absolutely right about that because I'm the hard headed child. I'm the hard headed child of God. So it actually took for me to have to sit in it,
Mhm,
um, wanting the closure, but
mhm,
not being able to receive the closure, and for me to finally accept that because I'm the one that puts up the resistance. Like, no, I need this. Like, but there was no possible way for me to get it. And
mhm.
finally, I had to give it to myself, and it was with self awareness. It was with journaling. It was with prayer. But
Yeah,
finally, I got to a point where it was like, and although I may not have felt like it was for my good, it was for my good.
it
You
was.
know,
Because all
so.
things work together. And sometimes we won't even know what that is until years later. Sometimes, honestly, we may never even know what it is, but that's where the trusting and the hope in God part comes in, because
Mhm.
your word says it's for my good. So I may not see it and it may not feel good, but he didn't say it was going to feel good. He said it was going to work out for my good. So just because it doesn't feel good doesn't mean it's not working out for me. And
Mhm.
a lot of times God is protecting us from things that we don't even know we need protection from. So things don't work out and we really hope that they would, but it's God's protection. And we don't always see that. Um, but it is, and sometimes it makes more sense later down the road. But we just
Absolutely.
have to, that's where the trusting God part comes in. So I really don't know how people live without him, because, or how they, because I'm like, I need that part. I have to be able to trust him to know that this didn't work out the way I expected, and I am broken over this, but I can't stay in this place because I still have something important to do. And if I stay in this broken place, I can't do the thing I'm supposed to do. So I got to figure this part out. And I need God to do that. I need God to put these pieces back together, because I don't even know how. I mean, shattered, when you're shattered, it's kind of like when you break a mirror or something. You can't
Mhm.
possibly figure out how to put all this, think about how to put all this, like, you just go buy a new one, but I can't go
Mhm.
buy a new me. So
No.
those pieces have to be put back together. I can't do that. So that's where the hope and the trust comes in, because I have to allow God to do that. Sometimes it's excruciating, but you
Oh,
have to let him put those pieces back together.
absolutely. Well, I am so grateful that we were able to have this conversation tonight. And also, you got the 31 days of prayer that is going on right now. Started yesterday, right?
Started, what day are we on? Today's Tuesday. Yes, yesterday.
Uh-huh.
No, no, no. It's
Awesome.
Thursday. So it's been 4 days. Help me with the schedule.
Yes.
It's been a long week.
Yes, so I love it. And then also you have the Visions Reloading, which is July the 27th.
Yes.
And this is located in
It's
Atlanta.
virtual.
It's
It's
virtual. Okay.
virtual. So that means everybody can come. I took away all the excuses. It was going to be in person, but I decided for this one to do it virtually because I want everybody who wants to be able to come. Because just like we've been talking about, everyone has that thing that God has given them to do, and
Mhm.
whether it's grief or heartbreak or just life in general has gotten in the way of that vision.
Mhm.
How do you move past that? Like, God, I know you told me to do this thing at the beginning of 2024. You told me to write this book, start this business, lose this weight, do whatever the thing was I was supposed to do. And now I'm here in the middle of the year and I haven't done a thing. And we talk ourselves
Yeah.
out of it. But instead of talking ourselves out of it, I want us to reignite those visions, reignite those those dreams that God has called us to do, not just for this year, but for the rest of our lives. And so that's what vision
Absolutely.
reloading is. So for this one, I made it virtual because I just want everybody to be able to, tap into being able to be refreshed, to, run forward and do what God has called them to do for these next 6 months.
Yes, absolutely. So I will definitely be sharing the flyers with the viewers, and I know y'all keep seeing me jumping because the fireworks are jumping, but this has been amazing firework conversation, and
Yes.
these fireworks are going all around, and I'm like, I'm constantly jumping, but that's what it is. It's the 4th of July, so you know what that pertains. But I'm so grateful to have had this time to spend with you today, and just have this conversation. And I look forward to us meeting again on another platform, wherever it may be, or back on this platform because this book drops in 2025, right?
Yes.
Yes, so I'll be
That's
looking
that.
out for it.
Like
I'll
that, we might
definitely
have
be
to bring
looking
some
for it.
boxes of tissue for it, okay?
Yeah, so I'm here for it. I love a good release, a little cry. But it's necessary because this is definitely a season of healing. This is a season of healing, unmasking, and just being who God has called you to be. So I'm excited, but I just want to thank you so much. And also, before we end the show, I like to give you the opportunity to give your flowers to someone who's still here because I believe in giving people their flowers while they're still here instead of waiting until they've already transitioned to give them flowers. So take a few moments and give your flowers to whomever you would like to give your flowers to.
I love that. That is a brilliant idea. Thank you so much. Um, you know what? I think in this season, I would really love to give my flowers to my parents. I am so blessed to still have both of my parents here, both still up and healthy and living well and in their right minds. And I am very grateful and appreciative of just the life that they've allowed me to have, just my upbringing and them rooting and grounding me in faith. It's what keeps me today. So I'm very blessed to have the parents that I have. I'm very blessed that they're so supportive. They're so loving. Even at my big age, they're still jumping right in to help. So I want to say to you all that I love you so much. I know you know it because I say it all the time, but I certainly believe in giving flowers while you're here to receive them, while you're here to smell them. So I want to say that I love you, I appreciate you, and I'm so blessed and honored to be your daughter.
Awesome. That was amazing. Well, thank you, Terry parents, for giving us Terry because we love her. We love her so thank you so much for coming and spending this time with me, Terry. And this has been another episode of Let's Talk Grief. And you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Lakecia.